I'm going to attempt a review of my ST1100 now that I've had it for over 1,000 miles. This is the first time I'm attempting to vlog with the open face helmet on the motorcycle. On the electric bike that I uploaded, the electric bike video I uploaded, the audio was very clear. The wind noise was surprisingly low, but I am going to be hitting higher speeds obviously on the motorcycle, and the wind speed might be more of a factor, although I do have a very nice windscreen on the ST1100. But I've been very happy with the ST1100. It's a surprisingly versatile bike. Initially I was worried that it was going to be heavier than I would like. I've never had such a heavy bike, and this bike is over 700 pounds once it's fully loaded with fuel and all fluids. But it also has a very low center of gravity, and just the steering feel at low speeds is very very intuitive. You feel like it's a much lighter bike as soon as it's rolling at anything above 1 mile per hour. So I love the slow speed handling. And then at high speeds, it drops into a high lean angle very easily. It doesn't feel like you're pushing it to get to those high lean angles. Part of it, I guess, is the wide handlebars, but I'm sure steering geometry and tire selection have something to do with it too. This bike has Metzler tires, which I think suit the personality of the bike well. And high-speed handling is also aided by the fact that the bike has a long wheelbase. So with the longer wheelbase, it does feel more stable, although it can't turn as sharply, I guess, or it can't take corners at a smaller lean angle like you would on a short wheelbase bike. So you have to lean this bike more to get it to turn quickly, but like I said, it drops into a high lean angle very naturally. 90-degree turns like this on a residential section feel much easier and more natural than they did on the VFR 800 or pretty much any other bike I've had, except maybe the Bergman 650. But even that one's a maybe. It feels very similar to a low center of gravity scooter at low speeds. This bike also has a progressive suspension, progressive brand suspension, front and back. Rear shock and the front springs are progressive. And that helps a lot with handling also. Before I bought this bike, I rented BMW RT 1300, brand new 2013 model. Rented it from Barnett Harley Davidson here in El Paso, with also Barnett BMW. But now, surprisingly, I didn't like that bike for several reasons. I had ridden a friend's, I guess it was an 08 or 07 RT 1200, and I like that bike for the most part. But this 2013 model, has electronic suspension, and no matter where I adjusted it, it just felt very wallowy and imprecise. even in the sport mode. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it's just really designed and tuned for comfort when you first buy it. My friend did have aftermarket Olin suspension on it, which felt good to me. But yeah, it was just this wallowy mess in the turns, even in sport mode. It never felt like it settled down. It never felt stable in the turns. I never felt comfortable with it through twisty roads. I like the transmission and the engine. That felt pretty good to me. A powerful engine, smooth throttle response for the most part. The brakes were kind of touchy. They were overly aggressive bite, I guess, during the initial lever pull. I like them to feel a little bit more progressive than that. And the other huge complaint on the RT, other than the suspension, was the seats. The seat was just the most painful piece of foam, vinyl, and plastic I've ever sat on. It was after 45 minutes or so, it was just brutal pain for both me and my passenger. And the seat is shaped like a dome, so it just feels like there's two pressure points, right on the nerve of each buttock, apparently, that it just puts it to sleep and causes pain. And I was just amazed that such an expensive bike would have the most uncomfortable motorcycle seat I've ever sat on. Whereas, opposed to the ST1100, where the seat is more like a cup, like a nice comfortable cup to hold your rear. It's fairly flat, but it does cup up at the ends. But anyhow, it just seems like it fits the shape of your bottom a lot better than the RT seat. The RT seat just seemed backwards. So yeah, I was looking for a sport touring bike, and I had been interested in the RT, looking at used RTs maybe. So I rented that new one, and after that experience, I just didn't want anything to do with RTs anymore. The cruise control was really nice on it too. A lot of people don't like the stereo, but I actually did like the stereo. You could hear it. You could hear the audio fairly clearly, even just slightly over 70 miles an hour. So I actually did like the stereo. But anyhow, so then I started looking at STs, other sport touring bikes. I looked at the Yamaha FJR. The FJR, at least the generation that I was interested in, the first generation, seemed to have some reliability issues. Let me pull over here. Seemed to have some reliability issues. So then I kind of discarded the FJR. Also, some reviews about low-speed handling said it felt very top-heavy, and the low-speed handling wasn't that great. So I didn't want a top-heavy feeling bike. Since I'm using it for commuting quite a bit, and with a passenger, low-speed handling also is more important. So I discarded the FJR for several reasons. Then I started looking at reviews of the ST1300, but they seem to suffer from high-speed wobble. High-speed wobble at higher speeds. There's some instability issues, and I'm not exactly sure what the root cause is. I haven't read enough about it, or maybe it hasn't been discovered, but it's either an aerodynamic issue or some kind of steering geometry issue, I suppose. So reading about the ST1300, the Honda ST1300, I was surprised to find that a lot of people kept talking about the ST1100, the previous generation, and how it was in general favored by the sport touring community over the newer bike. So the more I looked at the ST1100, the more I thought, hey, this looks like a bike that fits my needs, and you can get them, if you can find them, for a fairly good price. Since they are an older bike.